On an ordinary day, inside the elevator of an old apartment building, 5 complete strangers are about to face an incoming disaster together. Trapped in a space smaller than 4 square meters, the 5 people are very different. A police officer trying to keep order, a repeat offender wearing handcuffs, an aspiring actor chasing his dream, a timid college student, and a mechanical engineer. The actor is the first to react, calling the front desk for help. But all he gets in return is a vague answer. Someone will be there as soon as possible. No exact time. No real solution. With no other choice, the police officer contacts his partner outside, hoping they can find a way to get them out. But after the call ends, even the partner disappears. And it's not just them. In that short amount of time, emergency hotlines across the city are completely overwhelmed. Attacks are breaking out everywhere. Suddenly, the cramped elevator is swallowed by darkness. The student, completely unprepared, panics. Thankfully, the engineer steps in and calmly explains that this is likely just routine elevator maintenance. But what no one expects is that the actor suddenly seems like a completely different person. He starts blaming the entire situation on the student. Then, just as quickly as it began, the lights come back on, as if everything that just happened was nothing more than a hallucination. The actor acts like nothing ever occurred. He casually answers his phone. On the other end of the line is his interviewer. At this point, the other 4 people in the elevator all notice that something is off about the actor. It isn't until he hangs up the phone that he realizes everyone is staring at him. Completely confused, he asks what's going on. That's when the police officer steps forward and demands that the actor apologize to the student. But the actor's response only makes the atmosphere even stranger. His words leave everyone stunned. He claims he has no memory of what just happened. So now the question is, was it the suffocating 4 square meter space causing everyone to hallucinate? Or was the actor simply venting his anger after realizing he might miss his interview? Inside this cramped elevator, the weakest one clearly seems to be the student. And she doesn't even expect an apology from the actor. But among the 5, the police officer represents order and authority. And he sees things differently. In his view, the actor must apologize. Under the officer's intense pressure, the actor is finally forced to give in. However, this half-hearted, insincere apology only makes the situation more awkward. The police officer begins to suspect that the actor may be using drugs. After all, a normal person wouldn't behave in such a bizarre way. But before he can finish his sentence, the lights start flickering again, until the elevator is swallowed by darkness once more. Just as the police officer turns on his flashlight, a terrified cry for help echoes from outside the elevator. A man is screaming that his girlfriend is trying to eat him alive. Moments later, the roaring and screaming suddenly stop. And at the same time, the power comes back on. But what truly terrifies the 2 women is what they see next. At some point, without making a sound, the actor has appeared right behind the engineer. His stiff, lifeless posture is as unsettling as it gets. This only makes the already panicked student breathe faster and faster. That's when everyone realizes the girl is having an asthma attack. Even worse, she left her medication at home before coming out. The situation becomes critical. The police officer repeatedly calls the control center, begging them to send firefighters and emergency medical services as soon as possible. But the answer he receives is a cold one. There's nothing they can do. Every available unit has already been deployed, and the earliest backup won't arrive for another 2 hours. But the student doesn't have 2 hours. The engineer suggests forcing the elevator doors open. If they're lucky, they might be able to walk straight out, and the responsibility would fall entirely on the engineer and the police officer. On one side are the rules that could ruin their careers. On the other side is a living, breathing human life. As everyone places their last hope on the man wearing the uniform, what they receive in return is a cold, merciless answer. This answer deeply disappoints the engineer. Everyone has their own choices, and choosing indifference is never an easy one. Just like the police officer at this moment, he's being relentlessly condemned by his own conscience. In the end, the officer changes his original decision. The student's condition is rapidly getting worse, so the engineer asks the handcuffed repeat offender to keep an eye on her. The officer's first reaction is immediate. How could he possibly let a criminal take care of a student? But when his eyes shift toward the actor, standing silently in the corner, he realizes he has no other option. Even so, the officer's attitude deeply offends the criminal. Left with no choice, the officer is forced to compromise. That's when the student pulls a large flashlight out of her bag. It can be wedged between the closed elevator doors to keep them from shutting completely. But what truly raises suspicion is the student's backpack itself. After all, no one goes to class carrying a flashlight this big. The elevator doors are forced open soon after. Unfortunately, luck isn't on their side. Neither the height nor the size of the gap is enough for anyone to crawl out. Just as the engineer answers a call from her younger sister, a young figure suddenly appears in everyone's sight. This time, luck is finally on their side. The boy knows the engineer, and he even seems to genuinely like her. With that trust already in place, the boy doesn't hesitate at all and volunteers to go to the student's apartment to retrieve her medication. For now, the immediate crisis is finally resolved. As the tension eases, the engineer pulls out a small flask. She earns more than anyone else in the elevator, yet she's drinking at a moment like this. Clearly, this is another woman with a story. Time passes, second by second. Soon, continuous footsteps echo through the hallway outside. Lifted up by the two men, the engineer peers out into the corridor. Several figures can be seen nervously heading downstairs. Even when cries for help come from behind them, they choose to ignore them without a word. And it's at this exact moment that a strange, twisted smile appears on the actor's face. Step by step, he begins moving toward the student. Thankfully, the repeat offender notices it in time. But just as he tries to stop the actor, the police officer pulls him aside. By the time the student's pants are about to be pulled down, the officer finally, slowly, takes out his taser. After carefully aiming for a full 3 seconds, he finally pulls the trigger. After what just happened, it's now clear that the repeat offender poses no real threat. If anything, the one who truly terrifies everyone is the actor. As the officer is putting handcuffs on him, the boy who went to fetch the asthma medication finally returns. But just moments after the engineer hands the medicine to the student, a scream filled with pure despair erupts. It's the boy. The sudden sound sends chills through everyone in the elevator. As the engineer tries to climb up to see what's happening, a bizarre figure suddenly appears. It grabs the repeat offender by the hair. At the same time, the student behind them pulls out a blade and stabs it hard into the creature's hand. Unlike other zombies, these things feel pain. As the elevator doors slam shut, an arm drops to the floor without warning. One crisis ends, only for another to immediately begin. At this moment, the actor looks no different from the monsters they just encountered. It becomes clear he was infected from the very beginning. That's why his behavior had been so strange all along. But the officer has no idea what he's really dealing with. After repeated warnings go unanswered, he finally pulls the trigger. The bullet pierces straight through the actor's heart. Yet instead of collapsing, the actor remains standing and slowly calls out the officer's name. And that can only mean one thing. Those who turn into zombies still retain the intelligence they had when they were alive. The actor's life ends right here. The danger inside the elevator is finally over. But the disaster outside is only just beginning. And all they can do now is wait for rescue, if rescue ever comes. At this moment, the repeat offender turns his attention to the girl. He's curious about what she's been carrying in her bag. And the very next second, everyone is stunned. Snacks make sense. After all, most girls like to eat. The oversized flashlight from earlier is barely acceptable, but then they find something else. A sharp hand axe. And that's when things get unsettling. Before anyone can even ask her about it, the engineer receives a video call from her sister. Back at home, a body is lying silently on the floor. Meanwhile, violent incidents outside are rapidly increasing. But people have no idea what they're really dealing with. As a result, more and more people are being scratched and bitten, just like the engineer's sister. The moment she realized the body was gone, curiosity stopped her from closing the door immediately. Worried sick about her sister, the engineer decides to climb out of the elevator. The female zombie that almost got inside earlier has a similar body size to her. And more importantly, if the engineer can reach the control room, she might be able to fix the elevator. But the plan is clearly dangerous. In the officer's opinion, waiting for rescue is still the safest option. And then, the radio, which has been silent for a long time, finally crackles back to life. Clearly, the partner's desperate scream shatters the officer's last remaining hope. At this point, there's only one option left for the four of them. They have to get the engineer out. But right then, the engineer's phone rings. Her sister managed to kill the zombie. However, the hallway is now filled with constant, inhuman howling. Once she knows her sister is safe, the engineer actually stops panicking. Now, all she needs to do is reach the control room. Then the four of them can head to the rooftop together and rescue her sister. As the engineer prepares to move, the student also connects a video call with the two of them. This way, the three people inside the elevator can finally see what's happening outside. The engineer is their only hope. Before she leaves, the officer hands her his weapon, along with 2 spare magazines. The journey starts off surprisingly smoothly, almost too smoothly, so smooth that it feels unsettling. Floor by floor, the engineer moves upward, yet she doesn't encounter a single zombie. In this space, so quiet you could hear a pin drop, She suddenly trips and falls. As she searches for the switch to turn off the lights, the screen tilts upward, and that's when she sees it. A group of things, rushing downward from above. Warned by her teammates, the engineer scrambles back to the lower floor. She hides in the darkness, trembling. But strangely, there's no sound at all. No growls, no movement, not even the sound of footsteps. But very soon, the horrifying truth is revealed. It's not that the zombies aren't moving. It's that when they walk, they make absolutely no sound. Every step is careful, precise, as if they're afraid of alerting their prey. With the zombies above moving away, the path to the control room actually becomes easier for the engineer. But at this critical moment, a zombie appears behind her, without anyone noticing. As the screen suddenly cuts to black, the hearts of the 3 people inside the elevator sink straight to the bottom. Can they really make it out alive? The 2 men don't even know if they'll ever walk out of this elevator. Beside them, the student pulls out her phone and opens a voice message from her father. The voice she never wanted to hear again now feels strangely comforting. For reasons we don't fully know, she spent years hating her father. But as the howling echoes through the call, none of that matters anymore. Even if she wants to hate him, there's no one left to hate. Not long after, in the silent, suffocating space, the sound of a child quietly sobbing breaks the silence. When the student leans her head outside, what she sees makes her freeze. A body, curled up in the corner, shaking uncontrollably. No matter how loudly the student calls out, the person doesn't respond at all, only continuing to sob. Believing the person is simply terrified, the student insists on going out to help. Both the officer and the repeat offender try to stop her, but after the student throws out one cold sentence, "I'm not asking for your permission," the 2 men fall silent. As they help the student out of the elevator, the repeat offender quietly picks up her phone. Something feels wrong. He can't explain it, but the feeling won't go away, so he pulls up the footage the engineer left behind earlier. When the video freezes on the final frame, the group of bodies that appeared without making a sound, he finally understands what felt so off. That skirt. They've seen it before, but at that exact moment, the elevator is repaired. The engineer has clearly escaped the danger, yet that same moment pushes the student straight into it. Following the officer's explanation, the elevator begins moving again, returning to the previous floor. All the weapons were given to the engineer. What the 2 men have left is only a large flashlight and a tiny frying pan. The moment the elevator doors open, the student appears once again. The zombie has been taken down by the taser. But before anyone can relax, more infected figures step into view. One after another, they don't attack the student. Instead, they treat her as bait. At this moment, the repeat offender's strong build finally shows its value. 2 female zombies are taken down quickly, but just as he reaches out to pull the student back, a male zombie blocks his path. When the repeat offender is left with no way forward, the zombie suddenly goes still. The student drives the blade in her hand, straight through its central nervous system. But the girl doesn't step into the elevator. She's been bitten. Thinking back on everything that's happened so far, the student realizes the truth. She's probably already infected. As the 2 sides hesitate, arguing over whether she should come back or not, the approaching horde in the distance makes the decision for them. The repeat offender lifts the student and throws her over his shoulder. After all, being bitten doesn't guarantee infection, and even if she does turn in the end, she wouldn't truly pose a threat to the 2 men. Not long after, the 3 of them reach the rooftop, the place they had agreed to meet the engineer. At the end of the corridor, 3 zombies are pounding violently on a locked door. That means one thing: the engineer, or her sister, is very likely inside. But just as the repeat offender and the police officer start discussing their next move, the student's eyes lock onto the elevator doors. The sound of machinery grows louder, and in the next second, the elevator announces its arrival. The furious howls echo through the hallway, instantly drawing the attention of the zombies at the far end. At this point, the 3 of them have lost their only way out. They begin shouting the names of the engineer and her sister, over and over again. Seconds drag on. The zombies slowly surround them from all sides. Just as they prepare to fight to the death, a familiar voice reaches their ears. Following the engineer's instructions, all 3 immediately drop to the floor. The sharp crack of gunfire erupts through the narrow space. The engineer fires without hesitation, swinging a fire axe at the same time. After taking down all 3 zombies, she hands the weapons back to the 2 men. In a situation like this, weapons are better off in male hands. Meanwhile, the engineer bursts through the front door of her home. The zombie that attacked her sister is already lifeless on the floor. At that moment, the weight crushing her heart finally lifts. But when she steps into the bedroom, the scene she fears most still becomes reality. Her sister has already turned into a zombie. On the other side, the repeat offender and the other two rush inside as well. But they fail to close the door behind them, and the student's condition is getting worse by the second. If she turns into a zombie right now, the police officer and the repeat offender won't stand a chance. The student's consciousness begins to fade. In the next moment, her mother, who passed away years ago, appears before her. Then her father steps into view as well. The student stares at them in disbelief. Nearby, a cigarette keeps burning, yet never seems to grow shorter, filling the room with thick smoke. When the student looks back at her parents again, they have already turned into zombies. Before she can even react to the fear, the zombie that has been relentlessly chasing them slowly enters her field of vision. The next second, the student charges forward with her blade, but in reality, the weapon is pressed against the repeat offender's throat. This finally explains why the actor's mental state had been so unstable earlier. She can no longer tell what's real and what's just an illusion. Fortunately, at the very last moment, the student manages to regain her final shred of sanity. Meanwhile, the engineer is still struggling to restrain her sister. But inside that body, there is nothing left, except a thirst for blood. The moment 5 deep claw marks rip across the engineer's cheek, she finally makes the decision to end the zombie's life. The student has already begun to mutate after being bitten. And now the question is, will the wounds on the engineer's face lead to the same fate? As the engineer sinks into grief, the student makes the final choice of her life. If this continues, everyone will die. The only thing she can do is use her last moments to create a chance for the two men who refuse to abandon her to survive. The police officer seizes this hard-won opportunity and slams the door shut. Outside the window, the silent scenery delivers a cruel announcement. The age of civilization has officially come to an end, and an era of despair has truly begun. Fighting their way along a narrow path of survival, the three finally step onto the ground floor. But what awaits them is not a celebration of survival. It is the true beginning of the road to survival. In this escape with no visible end, can they really stay alive? Especially when the wounds on the engineer's face begin to change. What choice will the remaining two make?